Welcome to First Things First. As always, I'm Jenna Wolfe. As always, that is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Big show today. Kawhi Leonard's one-year stint with the Raptors could turn long-term. Steph Curry looks to add another notch to his legacy. But why not start with Kevin Durant? Without a doubt, the most inflammatory question in the Bay Area. Could the Warriors win a title without KD? The better question should be, could they win Game 1 without KD? Because that's what they'll have to do. Durant has been ruled out for the finals opener as he continues to rehab his calf injury. He might not even make the trip to Toronto, which would be Games 1 and 2. So, Nick, how close will this series be if KD is unable to go?
Well, to me, whether KD goes or doesn't go, it just changes who the series becomes more difficult for on the Toronto Raptors. With Kevin Durant, this series becomes demonstrably more difficult for Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's going to have to guard KD, particularly in the fourth quarters of these games. He's going to have to figure out how to moderate his energy usage on both ends of the court. If KD doesn't play, they might be able to say to Kawhi, guard Iggy and kind of roam around and save some of your energy for those fourth quarters. But without KD, it becomes much more difficult on the other four Raptors defenders because there's a lot more running around, there's a lot more screening, there's a lot more chasing. So obviously the Warriors would rather have Kevin Durant than not have Kevin Durant.
Sure.
That is, they can win without him, but they have more firepower with him. But the series, in my mind, gets harder for Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka, the others, if Kevin Durant doesn't play because of the style of offense they will play if he's not out there. If he does play, or when he does eventually play, assuming he does, then it becomes much more difficult on Kawhi Leonard, who's going to have to be the best offensive player for the Raptors while guarding one of the best offensive players in the league.
Right. First note on that one, Kawhi Leonard, talking to people very, very close to him yesterday. They feel as if Thursday night in game number 1 in the NBA Finals, this will be the healthiest that Kawhi has been in a long period of time. So they are looking forward to that. I think that's a very important note.
And does that include the leg soreness he's had in the last couple games in the last series?
Yeah, overall, he's had some tendinitis in his left knee. And typically, Jenna, you know this, training, you have one side of your body, you start to overcompensate, so then something starts to flare up on the other side. He had a problem with his right quad in game number 3, was able to get through game number 6, but it was important that they got finished in 6 games compared to 7, so Kawhi could get more rest. And with them clinching at home, they didn't have to travel, so all that was able to help him out. He would love to face Kevin Durant. He would love to. Given the stage of the regular season, given everything that he faced from a load management standpoint, he believes this moment he is ready for. It does change the Raptors and how they're going to play defense because KD won't be there. They'll have to make up their mind who Kawhi is going to play. But I believe it becomes even more difficult for Steph and Klay. And the reason why is because without KD, you can't afford for one of them to have a bad game. Typically, when you have the big 3 and you have Draymond and Iggy, you don't even have to worry about. 2 of those guys typically can be off, and they could still function at a high level. When you don't have KD, so now Steph, never been the MVP in the finals, is playing amazing. A lot of pressure on him. Klay, what if Klay's off? Because Klay's not going to handle the ball as much. A lot of pressure on him. And Draymond Green, to me, with KD being out, he becomes the focal point because his rebound, and he's the leading rebounder and the leading assist, but he gets the ball off the glass, push it down the court, more so with KD. So they have to be able to stop Draymond and realize that Draymond is going to be more aggressive. He's going to be trying to shoot the ball, be trying to score between 14 to 20 points. How can they negate that? They can't let someone else like Draymond score the basketball with KD not being on the court.
Can't you say, Nick, the same thing about Kawhi? At least Steph's had the other players who have, for the most part, been pretty consistent, Klay and Iggy and Draymond. But it's been hit or miss with all the players around Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he's got to be there. Plus, all those other guys have to show up if they even want to compete.
Oh, listen, of course, this is the NBA Finals. For every team but the Warriors that's made the NBA Finals in the last, 25 years, if their best player doesn't play well, they're going to lose that Finals game. Not a lot of instances of, we have this MVP caliber player, he no-shows a finals game, and they won. How many finals games did the Cavs or Heat win over the last 8 seasons where LeBron didn't play well? 0.
And even the basketball historians will go back, well, Kareem missed a game. Well, he missed a game. And Magic Johnson did take over, but it wasn't a series. It was only a game.
And even in that instance, Magic, we didn't know it at the time, but Magic was en route to becoming one of the 5 greatest players in the history of the sport.
Yes.
So that those Lakers teams of the early 80s, which are maybe the best facsimile for the Warriors, they had a similar situation where you have 2 all-timers. So if one of them's out, the other one can pick up the slack. One interesting note you said about Klay, I mentioned that if KD doesn't play, maybe they put Kawhi on Iggy and have him roam a little bit, or be able to conserve some energy on defense. I don't expect them to do this, but it would be interesting if they say, Kawhi, actually what we want you to do if KD's not out there is take away Klay. Make it to where Klay can't get off, and then the offense will be entirely about Steph and Draymond, that pick and roll and transition. I don't expect the Warriors to have the success in transition, with or without Kevin Durant, that they had in the previous round. One thing the Raptors got a very good test in and very good experience in was slowing down a great transition team in Milwaukee.
Yes.
That's how they stifled the Milwaukee offense. So I don't think Draymond barreling down the court, getting, you know...
It won't catch them by surprise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that they won't have as much success with that against Toronto as they did against Portland.
One of the key ingredients, I like the fact that potentially Kawhi taking away Klay to be able to negate him from going off and potentially getting 30. But I want to see if Toronto, if it takes them 2 or 3 series during the game with Steph, are they going to trap him? Are they going to play off the pick and roll? Because the other teams in the West, I was shocked. Houston, shocked with Portland, how they played Steph. So I believe that Toronto has the ability. They like to switch 1 through 5. But will they trap Steph, take the ball out of his hand, force other Warriors to be able to score the basketball?
All right, well, the best thing about them spacing the finals out is we get to talk about this for days and days and days and hours on our show. Coming up, for example, Steph Curry's legacy. Is it on the line in the finals? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We will be right back.
Don't worry, Jenna. We're just a few weeks away from being able to do your beloved baseball.
All right, we will get to Steph Curry in a second, but first, AAU team, Arkadelphia Bulldogs guard Jakari Livingston throwing down the alley-oop.
Jenna, that's Arkadelphia. Go get it.
Yeah, it is.
Now, check this out. Watch the small guy. Now, when he comes to the gym, I'm playing some ball. I don't expect to run into an NBA player, a little small guy. He couldn't even foul him.
Oh, yeah, no.
He jumped over.
Oh, the defender. No. Thank you. I'm not trying to take that charge.
Hold on, more from Jakari here. This time goes airborne, dunks on 2 guys.
And now the young guy took this L. You didn't know this was coming, see, but the young guy did try to foul him there. No, you're going to hold that L.
Oh, no, you need to buy a ticket if you're going to ride the roller coaster.
Oh, man.
He tried to latch on.
2021? So he's what, a rising sophomore?
He's a sophomore guard, Jakari Livingston.
Goodness.
All right, finally, little baseball. Brewers Twins, Jeremy Jeffress catching the line drive back toward the mound. Beautiful save. Woo!
Self-defense. He's not trying to catch it. He's trying to move out of the way. Great reaction. That's why you got to be a great athlete playing baseball.
I've got a great off-the-air story about Jeremy Jeffress, a former Royal, brief time with the Royals, went from the Brewers to the Royals.
Is this now an on-the-air story?
No.
Oh, I thought you were starting to tell
I was telling the people about who the player is.
Okay, Jenna, matter of fact, do us a favor. Tell that on your radio show later on today.
Okay, you know what?
Bap, bap.
Bap, CC. All right, let's talk some Steph Curry. As he'll be leading the Warriors into Game 1 of the finals against the Toronto Raptors. That gets underway Thursday night. Steph's resume, pretty tight. 3-time NBA champion, 2-time regular season MVP, and voted best babyface in the league. But what he doesn't have is a finals MVP. Steph opens the series as the favorite to win it, though. Nick, what would a finals MVP do for Steph's legacy?
It would move him into that top echelon of all-timers. It's the only thing missing.
It is the only thing missing.
He is a 3-time champion, like you mentioned. He is the architect and the centerpiece of, at the very least, the greatest dynasty of this era, and a dynasty that could rival the Bulls in the 90s, the Lakers in the 80s, maybe even the Celtics in the 60s. But the one club he's not a part of is the Finals MVP club. And if and when he gets a Finals MVP, he joins an even more exclusive club than Finals MVP. And that's guys who have multiple regular season MVPs who also have at least one Finals MVP. That list is 8 names long. Goes like this: LeBron, Michael, Magic, Kareem, Wilt, Duncan, Bird, Moses.
Wow.
Now, Bill Russell is not included in that. He probably should be. The trophy's now named after him, but it wasn't given in his time. But those players are the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, 9th, and 14th by my rankings, greatest players ever. And it's going to be hard to keep Steph Curry out of that type of conversation if he adds a 4th championship and a Finals MVP. It's the only thing missing. You could argue he should have won it in 2015 over Iggy. He was right there with Kevin Durant last year, but he hasn't gotten one yet. This is his best opportunity, particularly because of how badly the Warriors are going to need him in these NBA Finals, with Kevin Durant missing at the very least the first game.
Yeah, I think it's more important to me. The history stands alone by itself, but it's important that he has an epic NBA Finals, because in the playoffs, he has not been at his best. We've seen him best during the regular season, even though he's been a winner. If he's not MVP, because you guys posed the question if he is. Well, what if he's not MVP? Then the story continues, well, man, how good was he? Was he necessary? Because there will be a storyline if he wins it or if he does not win it. Let's just say the Warriors, for argument's sake, they do win it, and Klay gets the MVP, all right? Steph it's a hard argument for him because now he's played in 5 finals. So for me, not playing against LeBron or another iconic player. Now, Kawhi could turn the table and have an epic series, then been like, wow. Because I just believe if he did it against LeBron or other people, it means different things. On that list now, we don't know who they played against. We don't know who Magic won against. We don't know who LeBron won against. But it would give Steph the opportunity to get on that list. And as you think about him getting on that list, you have to think about what if he does not get on that list, because he has not played his best basketball in the NBA Finals.
But do you agree this is his best year to do it? Now that at least KD's not there, game 1, who knows how much longer?
I believe there's more pressure this time around than any of the other series he was in, because he can't afford to have 2 or 3 bad games. Right. No, and we have seen, especially starting off in the finals, him get off to a slow start. So with all the pressure on him, and for the first time, they'll be able to double team him. They can take the ball out of his hand. They can force him to do other things with the ball. The one thing I'm going to watch as the series goes on, watch how many turnovers he has. They've kept their turnovers down. I don't believe the Toronto defense is going to allow for that, so I believe they'll be a little more careless with the basketball. So I'm looking forward to seeing Steph on the biggest stage.
And what Steph has to avoid, because this is, I want to be very clear about my feelings on Steph in the playoffs. It's not that he hasn't shown the ability to have amazing playoff moments and amazing playoff stretches. He's in the midst of a 36-8-7 stretch right now. What has prevented him from winning any of Finals MVPs in the 3 years they've won the title is he has a propensity, unlike almost any other all-time great player, for the dud of a game. The 1 in every 5 or 6 playoff games where he is 5 of 17, where he does have a handful of turnovers, where he is picked on defensively. That's what cost him the Finals MVP last year, was he had one awful game in a sweep to where it was like, okay, like you could, at the series averages, he and KD were eye to eye, but Steph had the one game where you're like, that's a killer. In 2015, he had the killer game, I believe it was game 2, when the Cavs tied the series up before the Warriors went on to win in 6. If the Warriors win the championship, if he can just avoid an awful game that would be an excuse not to give it to him. I think it's only 11 people that vote on this thing. It's Van Gundy, it's people at the finals. I think ties will go to Steph. I think people would want Steph to win this. There's 2 other guys on his team who
already have a Finals MVP. So
absolutely,
the tie should go to Steph at this point in his career.
The stage is set, but the trophies aren't given out till the end. And typically, I've been watching sports, covering it too long. The thing that you think is going to happen, typically in sports, is not the thing that's going to happen. So for me, I'm more afraid of Klay going off. I'm afraid of Klay catching fire, because in some of these big games, Klay, he's been able to play for a quarter. He didn't have to be outstanding for 5 games, but there's more pressure on Klay. There's more pressure on Steph. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're neck and neck, Steph and Klay as far as the mentions, as far as the MVP.
And when you say, Jenna, is this his best chance? For all we know, this could be his last chance. I'm not saying it will be, but we assume Kevin Durant's going to leave. You never think things are going to end before they end. When KD, Russ, and Harden made the NBA Finals and lost to the Heat in 5, no one in the world thought that'd be the only time that group got there together. When the Celtics won with that big 3 together the first year, I don't think many people thought that'd be their only championship. I think a lot of people thought, oh, Kevin Garnett's going to have a chance to get a Finals MVP. He went back to another NBA Finals. They lost in 7 to Kobe.
Yeah, but these are the Warriors. The bulk of them are coming back next year. There's a good chance and a good likelihood. But I think because of KD perhaps not going deep into the series or maybe not starting for a while, that would be his biggest chance.
Well, listen, it is certainly of these last 3 years, I would argue, the best chance for him to shine because he's not going to have to share the spotlight with Kevin Durant. But while the Warriors will go into next season, even without Kevin Durant as the favorites in the West, they won't be the overwhelming favorites, them versus the field favorites they've been in the previous few years. So, yeah, it's important for Steph because to Chris's point, if this is the last Finals they make or the last championship they win, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, Iggy won 1, Durant when he was there won 2, and Draymond peeled 1, Klay peeled 1,
and KD's out.
And right. And without KD there, so I was looking at it from if he gets it, what it catapults him to. If he doesn't get it and they win, what that means for him, fair or not, moving forward is an interesting discussion as well.
All right, the news again this morning, KD is out for Game 1. We will see what that means for the rest of the team over the course of the next couple hours. Coming up, could this just be the beginning of Kawhi's career in Toronto? That is next on First Things First. Tiger Woods returns to Pebble Beach, the site of his most dominant major win. The U.S. Open begins June 13th on Fox FS1 and the Fox Sports app. It's about that time. Time for us to go viral. Yesterday was Memorial Day, so LeBron decided to hang out with some buddies. Posted this video to the gram. LeBron, Russ, Chris Paul, his agent, Rich Paul, hanging out, smoking cigars, having a good time. Do we read anything into it or just a bunch of guys having fun?
Well, you can't call this tampering because all those guys are on long-term deals. Now, I do bet my guy Daryl Morey saw that and was like, man, maybe the Lakers will trade for Chris Paul's 3 years, $120 million left.
That's a good little barbecue right there, Jenna.
Right?
I'm sure LeBron had the chef preparing some stuff that you would be able to eat. But all these guys, they got houses in L.A. It's not surprising. They didn't have to invite them. Chris Paul's cross town. The Brody is cross town. Westbrook.
Brody, well done.
Yeah, come on, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's his crew.
I'm disappointed our guy Shannon wasn't invited. Shannon's in L.A. Shannon should have got the invite. Come on, LeBron. Hit up Shannon. Shannon would have been the life of the party there. I don't know if he would have smoked those cigars. Maybe he brought a $1 Black and Mild, but Shannon could have been there. Okay.
I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Nothing.
You're begging for an invite on Memorial Day? He's big enough to fight for his own.
Stories to start your morning. AD Anthony Davis hoping to be traded to the Lakers to join LeBron this offseason, but Pelicans executive David Griffin reportedly met with AD yesterday to try to convince the big man to stay in New Orleans. This is fascinating. I'm absolutely dumbfounded.
Those drills are
that
amazing.
Talent. Nick, any chance AD is a Pelican for the long haul?
I would be shocked and stupefied if he was. I cannot imagine.
Well, you visit stupefied now. Don't go there now.
Okay. Shocked? I would be beyond shocked. Touche. I set myself up for that one, and you walked right through that door. Listen, the only way that you have a real chance of convincing Anthony Davis to stay is to just ignore his trade request, go into the season, and have him fall in love with playing with Zion. But you do that, then you run the very real risk of getting nothing for him. Him getting hurt, or all of a sudden you guys are playing so well you end up not wanting to trade him at the deadline. I think David Griffin is too smart and looks at things too much from the long haul to run that risk, so I don't think they're going to be able to keep him. I think he's traded in July.
David Griffin's doing the right thing, though. These are the right steps. You go through the lottery process, secure the pick you have there, then you start trying to talk to the brow to get him to stay. He's not going to want to stay. Out of the top 10 players in the world, no one needs more branding in a big city more than Anthony Davis. He's going to end up in L.A. or in New York. His management team, they don't want to be in New Orleans, and AD's already given them 7 years. So I look to him to be moved, Nick.
And real quick, see, of the top 10 players, no one needs more branding, you're saying, and I would argue no one needs to play more games on a big stage. We've never seen Anthony Davis except for one second-round series.
I could watch those ball skills all day long. Moving on to the Warriors, they cruised to their 5th straight finals appearance, with the Rockets giving them their biggest challenge in the Western Conference semis. Houston's coach, Mike D'Antoni, said they have a championship mentality. See, what can the Rockets do to close the gap with the Warriors?
They got to get better defensively. And I just believe that last year, that was the best defensive team. We were surprised they were going to be a top 10 team. They end up happening to getting in the top 5. So you got to be able to play some defense. And also, you have to have variation within that offense. I'm with Chris Paul. Man, you got to be able to move the ball a little more. So I do believe that Chris Paul made a point with James Harden. You can't play ISO ball and win an NBA championship.
And I will add, though, one thing they are not going to do to close the gap is to fire Mike D'Antoni. I know there have been some reports from some of my friends in Houston that with the Rockets changing up the coaching staff, could it be in an effort to get Mike D'Antoni to quit? If you are a betting person, it is a far better bet that the next Mike D'Antoni news is that he signs an extension rather than that he is released or fired or let go. They are committed to Mike D'Antoni moving forward.
But I do believe they forced him to fire some of his staff.
Well, I mean, there's clear some of those. Listen, they're not going to be able to change the players. They're not going to change the head coach.
Right.
If you got to tell the guys we're going to be better for some reason. So sometimes some assistant coaches are kind of have to be the fall guys, so to speak, in that equation.
All right, moving on to some football now. Recently retired Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer has been linked to a comeback, with rumors swirling he could take the USC job. But Urban downplayed the situation, saying, "I think I'm done. See any chance Urban returns?"
Not unless there's some type of medical emergency. That's going to have to happen first, and then someone's going to have to convince his wife. Don't ask Urban, ask his wife. His wife does not want him to be on the sideline. And most people realize when they're in a relationship, that spouse has something to say. But if he does, shit, I'm the wide receiver coach.
Okay, that's why
I'm waiting on the miracle, Urban.
So, but Urban, listen, but you've made two things very clear about if Urban were to go back to coaching. One, that if it were USC, you'd go coach the wide receivers. But two,
yes,
you would also be upset with your friend. Given what he had said, the reasons he wanted to stop coaching, what he wanted to do, and the things regarding his long-term health and his ability to enjoy a long, happy, healthy life, that this would be a quick change in that.
I think that I know enough about Urban and I know enough about the situation. There would be an easy explanation, because it would have to be something of a medical miracle for him to be able to be on the sideline and coach the way that he coaches. He has problems when he gets upset, when he begins to yell, and that's Urban Meyer. So he can't coach that way. That's the reason why he resigned at Ohio State. It's a real issue.
All right, finally, earlier this month, video surfaced of Cowboys Pro Bowl running back Ezekiel Elliott confronting a Las Vegas concert security guard. The situation escalated, and Zeke would later be handcuffed, but not arrested or charged for the incident. The NFL will now reportedly review it to see if Zeke violated the terms of previous suspension guidelines. See, what'd you make of this report?
It's not good for Zeke, and there's two things wrong with this. One was the security guard, the part of the photo that you did see. As a celebrity, as an athlete, you can't walk up on another man, because you don't know what's going to happen. Now, Zeke ended up happening to get the right security guard. If he had got the wrong security guard, they're in an all-out brawl right there. And then the part of the footage where Zeke continues to impede a young lady from walking and getting in her way. And given what he's been through in the past, I don't know why he would ever be be in a situation like that. So I'm surprised that Zeke would put himself back in that position. I'm not surprised that the NFL is not going to look into it. They have to do that, especially with the visibility of someone like Zeke. I mean, they avoided an incident there in Las Vegas, but it wasn't because of the player, because Zeke did everything but tried to walk away. And we teach the players so many things. We have acting companies come out, and they act out scenarios exactly like that one. So the players are more than informed at any other point in the NFL of what to do, what not to do. And Ezekiel Elliott, ever since he's come into the league, we have seen that he is going to teeter on that side. He's going to be an edge player. And that's a guy that, man, you don't know if one day he's going to get arrested. You don't know if one day he's going to be drunk. You don't know if one day he's going to be involved in some type of violence off the field. Because that's what Zeke has had the tendency to do in a very, very short career. Now, I know he got suspended before, but a lot of people say, well, he wasn't guilty in the court of law. But what the NFL, what they have to prove and what they have to prove in a court of law, they are totally, the optics are bad. And given that his struggle potentially with alcohol or with young ladies and putting them in a bad situation, this is not good for Ezekiel Elliott. He wants a contract extension. Now, for me, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm Stephen Jones, man, do I give that guy $50 million guaranteed? Right. So it's not good for Zeke and what he's trying to do. And even if he wasn't trying to get a contract, you would think that at this point he'd be a little bit smarter in social settings than what we saw in the video.
All right, to me, there's the off the field and the on the field. I want to address them both quickly. One, on the off the field, see, I'm really glad you mentioned the part that isn't what he's theoretically in trouble for. Not the bumping of the security guard and kind of chesting him into the barrier to where he falls, but the 90 seconds that lead up to it. Because the 90 seconds that lead up to it, if you watch this video, to me, are more troubling than that. There's a young lady who appears to be with Zeke, at least because she's with him. She's trying to help him at the end of the video when the cops are trying to detain him. So they clearly have some relationship. But she is, again, there's no audio, but if you watch it, it looks like she is repeatedly trying to walk away from him. And he is repeatedly following her. And menacing might be too strong of a word, but I don't know if it is. Cutting off her path. At one point, it looks like he restrains her by the arm and she pulls away. And that's intimidating, problematic behavior from a guy who we once saw when he was seemingly intoxicated in New Orleans, pulled down a young lady's top, which is criminal problematic behavior. And so not to mention what he got suspended for with the alleged violence. So there's that. I think Zeke is old enough to recognize that he and alcohol maybe don't make the greatest mix. That maybe Zeke, when he's perfectly clear of mind, is a good dude. But he seems to have a different personality, or the worst traits of his personality come out in these settings with alcohol. So that's the off the field. The on the field is this. He might have just given the Cowboys an escape hatch on some of their off-season cap troubles. They've promised to pay Dak. They and Amari are evidently far apart, but they traded a first-round pick for Amari, and Byron Jones is sitting there waiting, saying, man, I will let you guys not give me a contract with 1 year left on my deal. See what I cost as a legitimate shutdown corner in this league. But Zeke's the best player of all of them. Zeke's accomplished the most of all of them. Zeke should be the next in line to get paid. If you're Dallas, you now have a very legitimate reason to say, even if the real reason is, well, look at what just happened with Todd Gurley. Look at the short shelf life of these careers. Very legitimate reason to say, we're not paying you. We are going to show us a year, not just of good play, but a year of not showing up in one of these videos, and then we'll discuss the payment. Go an off season with no problems whatsoever. So I think Zeke, this little short clip, and shortly being handcuffed and then released, could cost him a lot of money moving forward and could be beneficial for the Cowboys' cap situation, but really problematic for their most talented player on who is he once he gets a few drinks in him.
It's surprising, or maybe it's not surprising, that he knows what it feels like to have to sit out of football. He knows what it feels like to have to serve a suspension. It's not like he got in trouble, but he didn't have to serve a suspension. He already knows that. So to either not have the right people around him constantly reinforcing, you cannot be either seen doing this, you cannot get in trouble, get ready for football, get your mind in the right place. That, to me, was a little bit surprising. But do you think that the NFL disciplines him for this, or do you think the Cowboys do in any way?
No, I don't think he's going to be disciplined for it because there wasn't an incident between him and the young lady. The optics being wrong and can you discipline a guy, those are two different things. Now, as you go forward, all this is just information. The NFL, they keep a file. It's just like your records in school. You go to the principal's office for making a mistake? Now, I told Nick a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be surprised if Ezekiel Elliott was in the commissioner's office several times in his career. Haven't been wrong about it. I don't think he'll be suspended for this one right here, but it's in the file. And Park Avenue, of course, they have to look. He's one of their most valuable players. He's one of the most visible players. And this is in the same family of something that he was already suspended for.
And just quickly, if something were to happen in the future, he has removed all benefit of the doubt he could possibly get. You know what I mean? Whether he does it or doesn't do it in the future. If Zeke Elliott's accused of something, if someone says he did this to me, there are now going to be a lot of people who say, all things being equal, I don't believe Zeke, because he seems to have a track record of, let's just call it at the very least, some bad behavior and bad decisions.
All right, let's get back to the NBA now. The Toronto Raptors are riding the coattails of Kawhi Leonard. And while his focus is on the Warriors, Kawhi's pending free agency looms. Many teams want him. Only one appears to have the leg up on getting him. Kawhi's uncle and advisor saying, quote, Toronto's a beautiful city. Kawhi has often spoken highly of Toronto. See, let's read the tea leaves. How optimistic should the Raptors be about signing Kawhi to a new deal?
Well, they own his rights. I mean, he's going to have to opt out of his contract to move on. The memories that Kawhi has, he's only got 2 memories. That's San Antonio, what happened there, and now what he's got going on in Toronto. I'm fortunate. I was able to talk to Uncle Dennis yesterday and talk about some of the things that Kawhi is involved with. And Kawhi has spoken very, very highly of what Toronto, not only the city, but also the organization, the medical staff, the coaching staff, how to utilize his ability. And he feels like he's gotten better as a basketball player. So all those things to be very important. But right now, Uncle Dennis, he don't know, because Kawhi is about the next treatment, the next practice, and the next game. And he said that's the way he's going to look at things, just like that. I'm trying to get healthier. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to make the most of game number 1. I'm only guaranteed 4 games. So they feel as if Kawhi will be healthier than he has been. But right now, their sole focus is to make history in this NBA Finals. They don't care anything about the Knicks, Toronto, the Clippers, or the Lakers right now, because all those things will be there. The day after the Finals, they'll sit down, Uncle Dennis, his agent Mitch Frankel, Kawhi, and his significant other, and then they'll make a decision as far as their basketball. But right now, because he's playing with them, he has the dunk of the NBA playoffs. He's got the buzzer beater of the playoffs. He is at record-breaking pace. What if he puts together, let's say, 4 35-point games in this final? What if he's the finals MVP? I mean, because right now, I know LeBron James wants to play with Kawhi, and they know Kevin Durant wants to play with Kawhi. Kawhi is concentrating on the job at hand, and that is to shock the world and be able to defeat the Golden State Warriors. In my communication with him and the agent as of yesterday, that's what they're thinking about.
And Kawhi is going to end up with 4 spectacular options. And I think because of how he's played and how he's conducted himself and how he's handled free agency, it's going to be very hard for anyone to begrudge him no matter what option he takes. In no particular order, option 1 will be to stay in Toronto, either as the defending world champions or as the defending Eastern Conference champions. Option 2, go to New York and play with Kevin Durant. Option 3, go to Los Angeles and play with LeBron James. Option 4, go to Los Angeles and play with whomever the Clippers build around, with you as the focal point centerpiece. There is no bad option. Those are 3 amazing cities. You could argue 3 of the best 5 cities. Now I'm listing North American cities, but 3 great cities like that people can have successful, fruitful lives in. And Kawhi, because he has handled his business so professionally and played so well.
And turned the narrative around from what it was last year.
Played through injury, turned the narrative around, and not allowed this story. He did take a page out of LeBron's book in this way. I'm going to treat free agency like this. It starts when free agency starts. This is the regular season. This is the playoffs. I'm not doing what Kyrie did and holding that press conference when I'm in New York. I'm not doing what Kevin Durant did and having it be that I don't want it to be a story, but continue giving oxygen to the story. Now, I will say, for Raptor fans, you should feel better about your chances than you did 4 months ago.
Sure.
But the one decision I feel that if Kawhi knows he's going to the Lakers, Clippers, or Knicks, he obviously can't say it right now. But right now, if he knows I'm staying with Toronto, he could say it. So I don't think he's made up his mind. No. I don't think it's definitive in that regard.
Absolutely.
Because if it were, he would tell us. Just like if Kevin Durant knew he was staying with Golden State, he can say that. And so, but we'll see what happens the rest of the way. And I think he's positioned himself where no matter what they do in the finals, Kawhi has done his job for the Toronto Raptors.
Knowing what we know about who's on the teams this year and next year, of the 4 teams Nick listed, the Raptors, the Knicks, the Lakers, and the Clippers, adding Kawhi would give which of those teams the best chance to win next year?
I mean, if you go to the Knicks with him and KD, that's a special team. If he goes to the Lakers, him and LeBron, it's a special team, and they don't have to get rid of the young players. I think that the Lakers are the best team on paper if he goes there. But I'm just going to tell you, Toronto fans, Knicks fans, Clippers fans, Lakers fans, Kawhi Leonard is a different dude. This dude just dropped brand Jordan for New Balance, okay? So if you think, have we ever had a player do that? No. So to think that we know what he's going to do beforehand, if you're outside that circle, that you're just guessing. Now, I do have a feeling where Kawhi is going to go. I think it's been fairly consistent, but I'm not at liberty. I don't want Uncle Dennis and the agent calling me. But I do have a feeling where Kawhi is going to end up.
Jenna, if your question was where's the best place for him to win,
yes.
Well, the place he's at might win the damn title. So you could argue the best place for him, even with the opportunity to play with LeBron or Durant, play with the Raptors, who might be the defending champs here in a few weeks. But I think Kawhi is going to do math differently than a lot of us necessarily would.
New Balance.
Yeah.
Coming up, are the Warriors in trouble in Game 1 without KD? That's ahead on First Things First. Oh, we're back here on First Things First, and we're joined by, I just wanted to be demonstrative about being back.
You've
We're
been
joined
great
by
today,
FS1
Jenna.
NBA analyst.
Sarah Kustok, good to see you, my good friend.
Kustok, it's lovely to see you. Love your dress. It's great to see you.
Wonderful. Mutual Admiration Society around here.
Compliments.
Kustok, I'm upset with you. The show was going well. You come in and wreck the whole show. Control room's going crazy. My guy on the jib can't get it right. And Jenna,
guy in the jib got it right.
Can't get right.
Despite a 60-win regular season, Sarah Kustok, and probable MVP honors, Giannis Antetokounmpo couldn't get it done as the Bucks fell to Toronto and missed out on a shot at the finals. So where does that leave the core of this Milwaukee team? Well, if it were up to Giannis, he would leave it untouched. Giannis posting to the gram, "We'll be back stronger and better, Milwaukee. Thank you for supporting my teammates and I this entire season. We couldn't have done it without you all." Sarah, how well are the Bucks set up for the future?
There's going to be a lot of decisions for Milwaukee to make this offseason. I like the fact Giannis posted that. That's kind of typical for what players do at the end of the season. I believe Giannis will be back stronger and better than ever. He's only 24 years old. We understand the type of work that he will put in this offseason. But when you look at this roster, handful of decisions to make with a lot of unrestricted free agents. Chris Middleton, a player option for $13 million. He'll likely opt out.
Definitely opt out.
And he is going to command a lot more money. Same with Malcolm Brogdon, who's been an important piece for the core of this team. He's dealt with some injuries, but he will command a lot more money on the market. What are you willing to pay him? Nikola Mirotic, who pretty much was played off the court throughout the course of that Eastern Conference final. Brook Lopez, George Hill. So the compilation of what this team roster looks like could be very different. And Milwaukee is a team that in the past has been averse to going into the luxury tax. So there's going to be questions for the ownership of what they want to do, how much money they're willing to put into a team that fell short of reaching the final. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think there's a lot of moving parts with this group.
All right, I'm going to say 4 names that Sarah didn't say. Wes Edens, Mark Lazary, Jamie Dinan, and Mike Fascitelli. Those are the 4 billionaires that bought this team for $550 million from Herb Cole a few years back. They were worth a combined right around $6.5 billion. You've got the single best asset in the league, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he's going to have a decision to make here in a couple years, but really a decision in 1 year. Will he accept the supermax you can offer him, or will he decide to go elsewhere? I say that to say this. You don't buy sports franchises because you're worried about the luxury tax. You buy sports franchises the way you buy a Picasso, because it's dope to have. There are only so many of them in the world, and eventually you'll be able to flip it for more money. You bring back Chris Middleton, you bring back Malcolm Brogdon, you bring back Brook Lopez, and you run it back.
And you hope that he wants to stay.
Well, if you make the finals, he will. And if you continue showing, he has not had any flirtation with other cities. He has shown no inclination to leave. He is a guy who is, we have a lot of NBA stars who are from humble beginnings. Giannis's version of humble beginnings are a little different because of his parents were immigrants from Nigeria to Greece.
Yeah, they're real, though.
They're real
Yes.
humble beginnings. And I would be shocked if next year you present a team as good as this year, they are competing for 60 wins in an NBA championship again, and then you offer Giannis $250 million, which is what it would be, and he says no. Now, you give him an escape hatch if you start being cheap. If you say, Chris Middleton, can we sign him? Malcolm Brogdon's a restricted free agent. You can match anything anyone offers him. There's no reason he shouldn't be back. Now, you can't bring back the whole team. If you lose Mirotic, it happens. If George Hill, I think he's got $18 million on his deal, but I think it's player option. If he opts out, I understand that. But those three guys are key, and they're key to keeping the only guy on your team that really matters over the next decade, Giannis.
And we have seen throughout the course of the NBA that you could essentially be in any city and build your brand. However, Giannis is a player who has made it clear time and time again, all he cares about is winning and winning a championship. You talk about his family, how close and tight-knit they are. He lost his father while playing in Milwaukee and being in Milwaukee. And throughout the course of that, the first place that he went to, and he was very open in saying this, was the gym. Showed up at the practice court, brought his brothers there. His mom is around all the time. This has very much become his home. And for a player like Giannis, if you put the right pieces around him and give him the right situation, that will continue to matter.
Are those the right pieces, CeCe? You say put the right pieces around him. There's nothing else you would do to this team. This team was right there on the cusp and can roll it all back next year?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, for a shot or two, they're in the NBA Finals. So we can't lose perspective on where they've come. We had their general manager sit right here, talk with us about as far as what they planned on doing going into the future. I think Giannis, how he was raised, realizing that his parents were immigrants, so he doesn't have the draw of a kid playing in the United States that ultimately wants to play in Madison Square Garden or wants to play with the Lakers. That's not, he doesn't think like American kids are. And you're right, Milwaukee has become his adopted home. He talked about yesterday in his exit interview, he talked about walking around the city, seeing Milwaukee Bucks banners, seeing Giannis jerseys, seeing how the culture has changed. They have earned the right after winning 60 games, making a huge decision as far as Coach Bud and that front office. They have the system to win. They don't have to change and tinker. Right now we talk about, well, wow, what about LeBron? How can they bring LeBron there and Magic wants to have playmakers? You don't need no playmakers. You need some spot-up shooters. So they have the ownership. They have the management. They have the style and the coach already. They just didn't get there. And we had not seen a team in the last 20 years that was able to skip this learning step and be able to become a champion. Nick thought they might be able to do it because of Giannis. It proved that no, all these steps in the last 20 years in the NBA, 30 years in the NBA, it proves out. You need some experience. You do need a iconic superstar and some other players around them. Also, Milwaukee, realize the league is going to recalibrate next year. There ain't going to be no more Golden State. So all you need is a star and an all-star to be a championship contender.
The league and the Eastern Conference. What happens in Toronto? Does Kawhi end up staying? What does Philadelphia do and what decisions do they make? Boston is up for grabs. So all of these other teams that you were looking at as contenders in the Eastern Conference, a lot can change, and Milwaukee has the opportunity to have their continuity.
I think fair money would be that the Knicks will be demonstrably better. Toronto, if they lose Kawhi, takes an enormous step back. Boston's losing Kyrie. Philly, I would be surprised if they are able to keep Butler and Tobias. So, yeah, Milwaukee is, but Milwaukee's in a great position. Where do they need to get better? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Giannis has to get better. Like, that's what it is for them. Their best player has to now take that next step. But even with Giannis at the level that he was at, to Chris's point, they're a double overtime game away from being up 3-0 and probably being the team in the NBA Finals, which is why you run it back, which is why you pay these guys. I do not believe Giannis will leave Milwaukee because of the glitz and glamour of the coasts. I think he would only leave Milwaukee if he feels like winning is not as important to my bosses, the ownership, as it is to me. And so that's why this summer, Milwaukee has as about as interesting of a summer as any team that isn't in the market to add a big-time player.
It's a good conversation. All right, Sarah, stick around. Coming up, is Steph Curry's legacy on the line in the finals? That's next on First Things First. Back here with Sarah Kustok, and we're talking Steph Curry. He's a three-time NBA champ and a two-time regular season MVP, but what he doesn't have is a finals MVP. The good news, Steph is heading into the finals as the favorite to take home the honors. Sarah, would a finals MVP do that for his legacy? Would it really change his legacy?
I think it's the one thing left that we can talk about that he still has left to accomplish, given the things that you listed. But I think aside from that, to me, Steph Curry has changed the complexion of how we view NBA teams playing basketball, the way young kids are running around on courts, doing his warm-ups, trying to emulate the way in which he plays. So would it take his legacy to perhaps another level? I think it would affect it. In my opinion, I don't think he needs that to cement anything of how we will remember him. But I do think given the career that he's put together, what we will still anticipate him to continue achieving and earning throughout the course of however long he plays, it is the one thing left.
There's a number of players that throughout NBA history, they've changed the way that people have played the game and either how people dress, fashion, all kinds of things. Julius Erving, when I was a young kid, man, everybody wanted to fro, and everyone wanted to be able to palm the basketball and to be able to dunk. Then we went through this phase after that where it was magic, and everyone wanted to play, pass the basketball, be happy, get your teammates involved, and then came the killer, Michael Jordan, and also the fashion icon, the shoes, the shirts, the wristbands, the knee brace. And then came LeBron with his new shoes, the force, the power. Between all those, there was another guy. His name was Allen Iverson. Him, Jordan, they changed the game more than any people that I can remember as far as on the court, off the court image. Allen Iverson had a thing, rap music, his braided hair, the long baggy shorts, the swag in the game. That was Allen Iverson. But why isn't he talked about when we talk about the greatest players? Because he doesn't have some of them other things. Because they're like pillars, they're columns. How many championships did you win? How many MVPs did you win during the regular season? How many MVPs of the finals did you win? This is the way people judge it. Weirdos like Nick, all right, they make these lists and everything.
Right, I'm about to give you one.
And this is the reason why it becomes important. Now, he is not Allen Iverson. But there's a reason why Allen Iverson is just the iconic basketball player compared to one of the all-time great, one of the Mount Rushmore. It's because he didn't have those things. So to me, it's very, very important. All championships are different. He has a great opportunity without KD because there would have to be a story if they win and he's not the MVP, and that story wouldn't be good for him because he's already got one of those with Andre Iguodala when he won their first championship MVP.
Well, so let's look at if it happens, if it doesn't happen. If it happens, here's Steph Curry's resume. Pick the first line. Is it greatest shooter ever? Is it more titles than LeBron during LeBron's era? Is it the first ever unanimous MVP? Is it what is it? Is it the centerpiece of the dynasty of his era and one of the all-time dynasties and a finals MVP, which is the only thing missing? Now, on the flip side, if they win and he doesn't get it, or if they lose, you mentioned I like making lists. I do like making lists, and people can argue about the order of the list, but a pretty universally accepted 14 greatest players ever is LeBron, Michael, Magic, Kareem, Russell, Wilt, Duncan, Kobe, Bird, Shaq, West, Oscar, Moses, Hakeem. Pick the order. Those are the 14. Every single one of those guys has a finals MVP, except for Russell and Oscar, whose their era was before there was the finals MVP. You go to the guys playing today that could join that list. Dirk, he has a finals MVP. Wade, he has a finals MVP. Kevin Durant got a couple finals MVPs. So now we're at 17 names. Steph Curry has an argument, I'm better than all those guys. I've had a better career than all those guys. But the crowning achievement for any all-time great player is that it's not just the championship, it's that you were the best guy, not only during the regular season, but during the postseason of that championship. Karl Malone's got the second most points in NBA history. He's got 2 MVPs. He's another guy. Now, he doesn't have a championship at all. He's been there a couple times and played really well, actually, but nobody cares. I shouldn't say nobody cares, but he is not considered of that tier. And in an odd way, obviously for Steph, getting this 4th ring is the most important thing. But when we're picking nits at the legacy, I think it'll be easier to explain if they lose this finals, like, hey, they didn't have KD, they went up against Kawhi, than if they were to win the finals and Clay gets an MVP. It's like, wait, Clay got one, Iggy got one, Durant got 2. And so, because people will recreate the history and make it, he never played well in the finals. And that's not the truth. The truth is, right, the truth, though, is every year they've won it, he's had at least one dud of a game that has taken the wind out of his candidacy. Last year it was game 4. The first year they won it was game 2. And he has given the voters a reason not to give it to him. Even if some people could argue he should have won in 15 and in 18, and nobody would argue in 17 it was KD. And so there is a lot on the line. His legacy is cemented, kind of. He's one of the all-time greats no matter what, but now we're talking about climbing that mountain. It gets very slippery at the top.
And I think there's a small margin for that. To me, though, I look at it, what if Clay spends a lot of time on Kawhi? And he does a good job locking him down.
Yes.
And he has games where he goes absolutely nuts. And he gets the MVP. To me, I think Steph will it take him up a notch? Is there small places for him to get to?
Will it pull him down, though, if he doesn't?
Well, if he doesn't play well?
No, if he doesn't if he doesn't get this coveted finals MVP.
See, I think I think it could add to it. To me, there is a way in which I look at what's Steph Curry has put together through the course of career, and it has been something that's unlike a lot of others.
It might not mean anything, but you have to explain why.
But when he's
been to 5 finals, never the MVP. Why? Yeah. If he's one of the greatest players ever, why? And I just believe that all those trophies, it's an accumulation of all of them.
But
that's why Jordan's the greatest.
And that's why I think it's so much fun for us to potentially see what this team may do if Kevin Durant doesn't return.
Your stupid list, too.
I like that. I thought we were going to get. I've never been on set when you've had a list.
He was late to work today. That's why he couldn't.
I was very.
Tomorrow
you
will be able to see a list.
Yep.
Get ready.
That was a great list, see.
We'll see you later in the show. Sarah, coming up, do the Lakers have a new trade target to team up with LeBron? Next on First Things First.
He can't do the graphics and visual because he's got to spend like 15 minutes on that hair.
Oh, my.
All right, we'll get to the Lakers' newest trade target in a second, but first you got to see this. AAU team Arkadelphia, Bulldogs guard Jakari Livingston with a big alley-oop.
Jakari can play for the Lakers, Jenna.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Look at this. And the little fella gets out the way. Smartly. You notice this, he says no.
He jumped over the guy.
Absolutely.
More from Jakari, this time airborne.
Get out the way.
Over 2 guys.
Stays on his feet, though.
Get out the way.
This guy, he's a sophomore in high school.
Wow. Man, these young athletes.
I'm being told he's 6'1"? A 6'1" sophomore doing that?
Yeah, absolutely, because that guy right there is about 5'4". Boom time.
Poor guy.
All right, Mets-Dodgers, Cody Bellinger throwing out Carlos Gomez at third base. Watch it.
Check out my boy Cody.
The cannon from right. Boom.
Nice timing.
Look at that.
A little crow hop. Check out the tab. Right on the caboose going past.
Love it.
Little crow hop. That's a crow hop. Throws a BB.
Hand to God. This morning, I get to the makeup room. I look over Cris Carter's shoulder, see what he's doing on his phone.
Bah.
He's reading an article about Cody Bellinger. And I said to him, I was like, how's that going to help you for the show today? He said, never know. Got to see what's going on in the sports world. And now Cody Bellinger shows up in the highlights.
How you think I've been doing TV long as you've been alive, Nick?
Good for you, Cris Carter. I was not reading about Cody Bellinger. It was the first time I saw that.
Not great.
Here we go. NBA Finals get underway Thursday, and for the first time since 2010, LeBron James will not be playing in those finals, which means we will shift the focus on who LeBron could be playing with next season. Perhaps Bradley Beal? The Wizards are reportedly open to a trade, but they would want Lonzo Ball included in the package. Nick Wright, should the Lakers try to trade for Bradley Beal?
It's an interesting alternative option. And I did not want the Lakers to trade for Bradley Beal during the season because it would remove their ability to, for all intents and purposes, sign a max free agent in the beginning of July this offseason. But once free agency hits, if they, to steal something from the Cody Bellinger line of thinking, strike out a few times, then maybe you go to your alternative options, which is a player a little below the tier you were hoping for that you also have to give up assets for. The reason you don't mind giving up assets in an Anthony Davis trade is you are getting a top-tier, top-level player. Bradley Beal just had the best season of his career. I think he fits beautifully with LeBron. He's the exact type of player you would want around LeBron, a guy who can run an offense on his own, but also is a knockdown shooter and is a quality defender. So I like the fit there. Now, if you're telling me the Lakers sequence it to where they sign a Kyrie Irving and then trade for Bradley Beal, well, now the offseason is an A+. Now you've hit it out of the park, to continue the tortured metaphor. But if you, if they end up having to settle on missing on the free agents and then giving up young assets for Bradley Beal, that would mean, even if the team can compete next year, that this offseason didn't go the way they had laid out 12 months ago.
Right now in the NBA, Jenna, nothing's more overvalued than young assets. And that's being people like Ball, people like Ingram, young players who we haven't seen their overall development. They're out of that stage where we're projecting Ben Simmons. Like, we keep projecting, oh, what's he going to be? So right now, I mean, the league and the executives, all these guys are overvalued. But right now, and just talking to some people, and I know Nick is on the scene, the Lonzo Ball, LeBron James combination, not only from a skill set standpoint, because let's just say Lonzo is not a true point guard, but he's a lockdown defender. He can knock down some shots from a three-point range. If we get his free throws squared away, what about being partnered with LeBron? Because Magic needed guys like Byron Scott, Cooper to come off the bench to be able to lock up guys and take some of that pressure so they can play the style. I just believe as LeBron ages, Lonzo becomes a more important asset to the Lakers because you need a lockdown point guard in that Western Conference. And I believe that what they're going through off the court as far as their relationship, LeBron mentoring him, Lonzo spending more time with LeBron, I just believe just be careful, because right now would be the time that Lonzo, I believe, is going to play his best basketball.
But it's hard to imagine any trade involving AD or Bradley Beal without having to give up Lonzo Ball. But, Nick, you talk so much about where guys are and what tiers they are and what would be best for the Lakers. Break down a little bit. Who are the available free agents out there, and what would be best for the Lakers? And what
well, let's show the free agents plus. Let's include Beal and Anthony Davis, who are potential trade targets. And to me, it's pretty clear. Like, there's tier one, and Durant and Kawhi are clearly at the top of that, and with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving following them. You could argue Kyrie should be is tier 1.5, but that's your first tier options. Tier two is that next level of player, three of whom bring a somewhat, or at least two of whom, Clay and Beal, a somewhat similar skill set. Kimba brings that same skill set without the defense. Jimmy Butler brings a lot more defensively, less shooting than any of the other three guys. And then tier three is break glass in case of emergency. If you're down to Boogie Cousins, Tobias Harris, and we're not even going to include the tier four, which is like the Nikola Vucevic's of the world, who are nice players in their own right, but cannot be the second best player on a championship level team. I would, in a heartbeat, give up Lonzo Ball for Bradley Beal if that were my third move or my third star, my second move of free agency. I'd give up everyone for Anthony Davis as my first move of free agency. The Lakers' best hope right now is that LeBron and Kyrie are coming to an agreement, and that they can sequence the events to where you can sign Kyrie and then do the trade for Anthony Davis, do the trade for Bradley Beal. It's going to be very difficult to do it in the reverse order just because of how the salary cap works, but just trust me on that. I do like Bradley Beal as a player, and this year under very tough circumstances.
Yes.
Bradley Beal damn near made an All-NBA team. He actually was the first man off it, not Klay Thompson. He averaged 26 points a game. He played all 82 games for the second straight year. Now, that's also important because I don't think you want to ask LeBron to play 75 to 82 games in year 17. So for all those reasons, it'd be a good fit. But even in a Western Conference without Kevin Durant, what you would be asking yourself is LeBron James plus Bradley Beal, is Beal a good enough secondary option to compete for a championship? The only way in my mind he would be is if you do a great job filling out the rest of the roster. And do we trust Rob Pelinka and the Ramby to do that? I don't so much. So that's why I would trade Lonzo, but it would be having Beal be the centerpiece of my offseason would be a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, you can't do the Bradley Beal thing before you know what Kawhi and everyone else is going to do.
Yep.
Bradley Beal is a good plan C. But, man, for LeBron James, let's not forget, the last 2 years, they tried to clear all that cap space. They landed LeBron James. How does that picture finish out? And Bradley Beal, to me, when you look at LeBron's coming to the Lakers, who's his sidekick? Bradley Beal. I like Bradley Beal's game, but it means that a number of other things have gone wrong. So, yes, if that is at the end of the summer, that's all they can do. I like him as a player, low maintenance, the 26 a game, 82 games that he played, and is a great defender. All those things are a plus for the Lakers, but it will let you know, wow, a lot of stuff must have went wrong.
Exactly. All right, take a break. Coming up, do the Milwaukee Bucks need to blow up the roster and rebuild around Giannis? That's next on First Things First.
That's right.
Back here on First Things First, time now for say what? Drake and his sideline antics have been a big topic of discussion this postseason, both elsewhere and to my right. Naturally, Warriors head coach Steve Kerr was asked about it. Say what?
I'm not worried about Drake. I called him on his cell phone earlier, and my daughter's rolling her eyes right now. She's like, "Dad, no more dad jokes, please." So, sorry.
Steve Kerr loves himself a good dad joke now. That's a great one. I do have a question for you, Chris Carter. Who do you think Drake's rooting for in these finals?
I don't know who.
Tell him why you're asking.
Well, I mean, he does have a tattoo of Steph Curry's jersey and of Kevin Durant's jersey. So, like, Drake, diehard Raptor fans, I don't know, Drake, you got a few days, get a Kawhi Leonard tattoo. You're Mr. Toronto, you're the I'm trying to make an important point.
I don't get it.
Guys.
I don't
This
know
is
who's
the
dressed
music
up.
video. This is the video.
Oh, yes, I got it.
Steve Kerr, the Drake song.
Call me on my
Yes.
call phone.
Hotline Bling with
Yes.
the line, call
How
me on my
does it
cell
go?
phone. I'm not going to sing
How
on
does it go?
television. We'll get sued. We're not allowed to sing Drake's
okay.
lyrics. He's
It's
probably
just
already
people
very
in winter
mad.
coats?
Well, okay, that's just trust us.
Okay.
That's the video that like what's what it would look like if we were.
They
in the
had to
video.
Photoshop it because we couldn't do a video because you can't dance and Nick
Okay,
Wright
that is-
definitely cannot
that's
dance.
not-
Prove it.
I've learned how to dance, and
Prove
I
it.
do dance.
When's the last
very
time you
well
were
now.
out at the?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe
At
you're
a
the
little
one that can't dance.
night
see?
spot, Chris Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about
Yeah.
that?
Nick and
How
I have
about
been
that?
dancing a lot after the
Okay,
show.
don't include. I'm not on that corner.
Get on
I'm
the
not-
corner.
I'm
Yeah,
not on,
there you
I'm
go.
not
Get
on
on
your
the corner.
Elaine Bennis
Yep.
all
Go ahead,
thumbs and
yep,
knees.
there you
corner.
go. It'll
What
be-
is that?
Go
What
ahead and
dance
dance
is
so
that?
all these people can slide into your DM.
What?
Okay,
No.
Do
that-
it, Jenna.
That's
Do
not,
it, Jenna.
that
Yeah.
was misspoken.
Oh,
This is a new move I've learned. It goes up and down. That's
You're
what
just
CC
doing
told me.
workouts.
No, CC.
Just doing workouts.
Wait, did you lie to me? Was that not a real move, CC? That's the move you taught me. I've been spinning
Jenna,
that around
I
town.
lied to you again.
Time for stories to start your morning. Anthony Davis is hoping to be traded to the Lakers to join LeBron this offseason, but Pelicans executive David Griffin reportedly met with AD yesterday to try to convince the big man to stay in New Orleans. Nick, any chance AD is a Pelican for the long haul?
Here's the thing. They would have to convince him before the season started because David Griffin is too smart to let Anthony Davis play another game with New Orleans without signing an extension because then you risk having this asset walk out the door for nothing. And so, no, I don't think they can convince him with words. Maybe they could convince him by him falling in love with playing with Zion. Drew Holiday has another great year, but I don't think they're going to have that opportunity. I think he gets moved this summer.
Yes, Griffin's doing all the right things, but this is about a player. Of the top 10 players, no other player needs branding like Anthony Davis. He wants to be in New York or Los Angeles. So if he's not on the Lakers, he's going to be on the Knicks. That meeting, I'm sure Anthony Davis finally told them, just like Kawhi Leonard last year told Greg Popovich in that face-to-face meeting, I don't want to be here. I think similar things happened in the meeting with AD.
All right, moving on. Let's talk some Steph Curry, as he'll be leading the Warriors into Game 1 of the Finals against the Toronto Raptors. That's Thursday night. Steph says resume pretty tight. 3-time NBA champ, 2-time regular season MVP, and voted best baby face in the league. But what he doesn't have is a Finals MVP. Steph opens the series as the favorite to win it, though. Nick, would a Finals MVP impact Steph's legacy?
Oh, of course. If he gets a Finals MVP, it's very hard to make an argument he's not one of the 20 greatest players ever. You can already make the argument he is. But if he has that, there's no more hole in his resume. And he could look eye to eye with any of those guys in that 15 to 20 range and say, why are you better than me? What have you accomplished that I haven't accomplished? He already sees the greatest shooter ever and one of the 3 greatest ball handlers ever with 3 rings and a unanimous MVP. This is the one thing he's missing.
I'm wondering who's on the committee that's voting for best baby face. Jenna, are you on? Because do you cast your vote? Is that
Babyface?
a committee of one? Yeah, Steph
on
Curry.
Tuesday I did.
Who else is on it?
Yeah, so it's me, it's my 2 kids.
No, who else is on the list?
Oh, for Babyface? Just Danny Ainge from 1986 and then Steph Curry from 2019.
Oh,
Okay.
Got
All
it.
right.
Okay.
That's the more important.
Okay.
Not being an iconic basketball player.
The babyface.
Yeah, Jenna's making a list
Absolutely. Best babyface.
for the first time ever.
I
like
have
it,
other
though.
more pressing lists I'd like to get out, but I guess now's not the time
Okay,
to talk
we'll work
about
on
it.
that. You and Deontay.
Despite his 60, love you, Deontay. Despite his 60-win regular season and probable MVP honors, Giannis Antetokounmpo couldn't get it done as the Bucks fell to Toronto, missed out on a shot at the finals. So where does that leave the core of this Milwaukee team? Well, if it were up to Giannis, he would leave it untouched. Giannis posting to his Instagram account, "We'll be back stronger and better. Milwaukee, thank you for supporting my teammates and I this entire season. We couldn't have done it without you all." CC, how well are the Bucks set up now for the future?
Well, I think the Giannis and the Bucks did a good job of their exit interviews and everything yesterday. Not only did they meet with the coaches, front office, but they met with the media. And Giannis talked about walking around Milwaukee and the difference in when he first came to town compared to now. Not only do they have a new arena, but he talked about the signage of Milwaukee Bucks stuff that's throughout the city, the jerseys, the kids and the people there, how the culture has changed. They got a very good basketball team, and he talked about, too, they had an exceptional season. It's rare to win 60 games, make it to the conference final, first year of Coach Bud, very, very young team. And Giannis pointed out, too, that he likes the makeup of the team. He wants the team to be able to come back. Now, that's impossible in its totality to be able to run it again because he believed they could have won a world championship this year. But he said a couple other things. He said I don't want to be mean, but there's no a-holes on the team. And he said, I want everyone to come back. He said, we love coming to work. We love everyone's sacrifices. We have a roster full of guys that everyone plays the right way. And Giannis about guys being unselfish because he is the leader. And if he's going to be unselfish, he's expecting to have a team full of guys that are unselfish. So those things, I believe Giannis is doing all the right things, saying all the right things, but it's hard. It's hard to get back to right where they were. You don't pick up in week number 1 next year where they're a 60-team win again. No, you have to start building that mountain. I believe that their general manager sat right here, told us they're doing everything the right way. They do have a formula to win. They'll put shooters on the court with Giannis. I love the style for which they're playing, and I love the way that they put pressure on Giannis to develop his game. So I think they're doing all the right things in Milwaukee to create a championship atmosphere.
I know that sometimes you don't like it when I say a team could have done this, but I think you'll agree with me. This Bucks team could have won the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yes.
It is not. They don't need some massive. You didn't look at this series and say, man, yeah, they're a regular season team, but they're going to be. They can't get past this. They were right there. As far as losing in 6, you feel like, if they were that close. No, they were that close.
You got to go back to Game 3.
You go back to Game 3. You could even go back to Game 6. The 15-point lead with 14 minutes left in that game, where if they can just close that out, they have a Game 7 last night in Milwaukee. So they had opportunities. So the only reason you wouldn't run it back is if the handful of billionaires that bought this team for $550 million decides they don't want to pay the luxury tax. And that would be such a foolish decision. And I know in general we're not in the business of spending other people's money, but I don't mind spending owners' money. Buying a sports team is not like buying another business. You are buying a part of the community. There are only so many of these available. You get those courtside seats. You get a parade if you win a championship. As Mark Cuban said, you can have the greatest quarter in the history of Wall Street. They're not throwing you a parade down Fifth Avenue. We get a parade when we win. There is an element of, and you know you might lose money in any given year, but the real value in buying a major
Nick,
American
how long ago
sports
did
team,
they purchase this team?
5 years ago.
No, who was the star of the team then?
Giannis was a young player. I don't even.
Oh,
right.
Okay, so you don't purchase that type of asset and say, I'm just going to ride this out.
Right, and when you make your real money when you buy a sports team, when you sell it. when you sell it for 10x your investment. When they bought the Milwaukee Bucks, it was for the most anyone ever paid for a team. It was $550 million. What are they worth now, 5 years later? $1.5 billion? They got that new Fiserv for them. They have one of the best players in basketball. So why does this matter? A year from now, Giannis is going to be in the exact position Anthony Davis is in this summer, Kawhi Leonard was in last summer, which is they're going to slide across the table to him a supermax extension. For Giannis to be about 5 years, $247 million. If they don't show the commitment to the team this summer by bringing back Middleton, Brogdon, and trying to bring back Lopez, but absolutely Middleton and Brogdon, and I would argue Lopez as well, then you are giving Giannis a reason to leave. You're giving Giannis a reason to say, because I don't think it's about the glitz and glamour of the coasts. I think it's about winning and getting back to this point and further next year. And so, to me, you have to make that investment in those players this year so you have the opportunity to make the investment in Giannis.
And realize you had two superstars. Right now we have AD. He met with Griff. We had Kawhi. They slid the paper across. These two guys, they slid it back where the money wasn't as important. It's a different breed of athlete. There's a lot of money to be made off the court, other places. You don't have to be in a big market to do it. So don't be surprised if Giannis doesn't see what he likes. As far as them keep building, slide that paper back, and then they got real problems.
And you think about what happened with Kawhi and Anthony Davis. With Anthony Davis, they had 7 years to build a good team around him, never could. Got to the second round of the playoffs once. With Kawhi, they basically called him a liar and questioned his sports integrity. That's how the situation Giannis is in. He hasn't flirted with any other teams, any other cities. He has seemed to really enjoy Milwaukee, but he wants to win. If you run it back next year with a lesser team because you want to avoid the luxury tax, you are risking the single best asset in the NBA, which is Giannis. And if he walks, okay, maybe 15 years from now, you'll get lucky and find another Giannis, but the odds are you won't. You pay these guys.
All right, we'll leave it there. Coming up, is Kawhi's finals run with the Raptors just the beginning? That's next on First Things First. FS1's your destination for the day's best sports shows. Tune in for the biggest personalities on the biggest stories. We get you started right here on First Things First. Catch it on Monday through Friday.
Who gets us started, Jenna?
I get you started, Nick, right?
Who gets us started tomorrow?
Sarah Kustok. That's just
All
fine.
right.
All
right.
I threw it up at the rim. You knocked it down. See, Jenna's so mad right now.
You guys are so good at virtual basketball. So good at virtual basketball. Back here with Sarah Kustok. Raptors are riding the coattails of Kawhi Leonard, and while his focus is on the Warriors, his pending free agency looms.
Good Lord, I'm looking at next year's playoff.
Kawhi's uncle and advisor says, quote, Toronto's a beautiful city. Kawhi has often spoken highly of Toronto. Sarah, let's read between the lines here. How optimistic should the Raptors be about signing Kawhi to a new deal?
I will say this. Toronto has done absolutely everything they possibly could do to sell Kawhi on staying in Toronto. All the ways in which they have made sure that Kawhi was as healthy as possible. I know gentleman Alex McKechnie, his name has come up often. He's the director of sports performance, one of the assistant coaches with Toronto, has made Kawhi feel very comfortable in how he's been able to work the load management throughout the regular season to be ready for this postseason. And the fact that they're going to the finals, that's a huge aspect of it. The team they put around him, the relationship he has with Nick Nurse. But there's going to be a lot for Kawhi to decide once the season is over. And Cece, I know you've had some conversations with those inside Kawhi's camp. But I think for Toronto, there's a lot of optimism coming from the organization. I'm not sure how much of that is a reflection of Kawhi and what they have heard or seen from Kawhi, or just feeling like they put their best foot forward.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other teams just like Toronto that they're optimistic. I'm sure here in New York, Scott Perry, Steve Mills, the Knicks, they're optimistic that they might get a meeting. I'm sure the Clippers, because of when Kawhi requested a trade from San Antonio, he said Los Angeles. So in doing that, the Clippers, the Lakers, there's reason to be optimistic. No one on the surface should be more optimistic than Toronto because of what he's done there. He's got the shot of the playoffs, and that being the buzzer beater Game 7 against the 76ers. And to me, he's got the dunk of the playoffs where he goes left hand and against Giannis was a spectacular play, one of the most exciting plays that we've seen. And Kawhi is focused right now just on trying to be healthy as possible, trying to get to practice. So Toronto, they should be optimistic, but they don't know. Uncle Dennis does not know. His agent, Mitch Frankel, they don't know. I talked to both of them yesterday because Kawhi has given them strict orders. This is what I'm going to be about. I'm about the next treatment session. I'm about the next practice, and I'm about trying to shock the world in game number 1. He knows he's got 4 opportunities. He wants to turn this into a long series. So I can truly tell the public, he's not like Kyrie. He don't have a wandering eye. He wasn't talking to people during the season. He's focused on the job at hand. He realized that basketball history is right there at the door. He's got an opportunity, and he's trying to take advantage of that. Toronto could not have done a better job than what they've done.
And that's where Toronto, whatever happens, Toronto has to feel like we did everything. I don't know, see, I feel like you're the first person I heard say this, so I'll give you credit for it. Control your controllables and don't worry about the other things. Toronto did everything right. When they traded for Kawhi, they got San Antonio to include Danny Green, so he had a familiar face. They were as cautious with...
But Danny Green is a big part of it because last year when they questioned, Tony Parker made the idiotic comment that my quad was 100 times worse than what Kawhi's was. Danny Green was the one who came out and spoke and said...
Had Kawhi's back.
He said, I totally back up Kawhi.
And so from the very beginning, they have the Spurs include not just a throwaway player that's going to start with Kawhi and a player that he has familiarity with and a player that, by the way, if Kawhi didn't win the Finals MVP in 2014, could have been Danny Green. He had 27 threes in that Finals against the LeBron's Heat. So you did that. You were as cautious with him during the season as I've ever seen with a healthy player. I mean, the reason Kawhi almost didn't even make second-team All-NBA was because people said, man, he missed 22 games during the year without a clear, it's not like he missed a month
Healthy
with
scratch.
injury, of healthy scratches. During the year, you said, we're going to go even more all in on this season. You trade for Marc Gasol. It's one of the biggest additions any team made during the season. And now you have put Kawhi in a position where if the question is, where am I, let's say they fall short of a championship, where am I in best position to win a title? You can make a strong argument it's exactly where he is. So Toronto's done everything they can do, and he still might leave. He still might have just simply been very professional about this. And if, by the way, if he does leave, I will respect the way he's conducted himself this season almost even more. Not that I'll respect him more if he leaves, but if he does not want to be there and is still doing everything he's done and kept the noise so quiet compared to other players we've seen who haven't been happy where they are and do things a certain way, to me that'll be a testament to his professionalism a year after his professionalism was under attack.
Without a doubt. And Kawhi can make any decision that he wants, and he should be fully respected and supported for that. 2 things stuck out to me, though, from the postgame of winning the Eastern Conference Final. One, the fact that Masai Ujiri had proclaimed that Kawhi Leonard is the best basketball player afterwards, as you would expect him to do so. Kawhi was asked about him. He said, well, Masai told me that when he brought me here.
Yes.
He sat me down and said, this is why we're bringing you here, because I believe you are the best basketball player in the NBA. And Kawhi was quick to say that, knowing that he had that support regardless and prior of even how he performed this season and in the playoffs. Secondly, Kyle Lowry was a player who was very disappointed in the trade. Understandably so. He felt
you trade my best friend,
he felt
I'm
like he
upset.
lost his best friend, and he was the person that Kawhi Leonard pointed out and said, Kyle has helped me so much throughout the course of the year, getting adjusted both on the court, off the court. I go to him for questions. Kyle Lowry looked at Kawhi Leonard when asked what was the difference of you getting here. He laughed a couple times, and this is the man that did it. So I think to their relationship that they built is something that's very significant.
If the Raptors lose Kawhi Leonard and you're the Raptors, do you make that trade again?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
99 playoff games they played.
Even though you're going to come back next year, you have no Kawhi and no DeMar DeRozan.
99 playoff games they played in before in the clincher in game number 6, Kawhi delivers the 27 and 17. First time in NBA history that North America is represented by a team from Canada. This is a United States game. And now we got a team from Canada. That history right there is worth it. And I know Toronto, if they have to make the trade, they're able to do it because hindsight, it got me to where I was always trying to get to, Nick.
And, by the way, you look back on what they gave up. They didn't give up that much, and they have, as you mentioned, the greatest moment in Canadian basketball history. One other thing, it might be very small, that Toronto has going for it is, while I give Drake a hard time, they have amazing fans, and they have an amazing crowd in and outside of the arena. They've gotten fortunate in this regard. The two biggest moments have happened at home. So he hits that game winner. It wasn't game 6 to clinch the series. It was game 7. And he got to bask in that crowd. They clinched the NBA Finals berth at home. So they get that trophy presentation at home on the court, not back in a locker room. Like those are small things, but you create more memories. You create more traction, more of a reason for someone to stay. Again, nobody knows. Doesn't seem like Uncle Dennis even knows what Kawhi's going to do, but Toronto's positioned themselves as well as they possibly could have.
All right, Sarah, stick around.
I have a really good feeling,
but you're not.
I can't say it till after the finals.
Okay.
Coming up, are the Warriors in jeopardy of dropping game 1 without Kevin Durant? That's next on First Things
I'm
First.
willing to take a bribe.
I thought you were going to say Nick giving Drake a hard time.
The 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup kicks off in 10 days. All eyes will be on Alex Morgan, Carly Lloyd, Megan Rapinoe, and the U.S. women's national team as the defending champs head to France, looking to win a historic 4th World Cup. All the matches will be live here on Fox and FS1. It's getting closer. Back here with Sarah Kustok, we're going viral. All right, check out this video from over the weekend. LeBron James having a 3-point shootout with his son Bronny's teammate Gabe Cupps. Okay, here we go.
I was watching this. I was surprised that Gabe lasted so long.
Yep. He made the first 2, I believe, or 3, and then finally missed one. And he made the first 3 and then finally missed one. You're gonna see LeBron after he hits the little winner against the little kid, gives him a little looks back at him a little. Come on, young fella. You're not gonna. But he held his own. A lot of pressure on LeBron here. Go ahead, see.
That's NBA. That little kid getting the ball up that far, that's not college. Man, that's NBA three-pointers. Great form, great arc on his jumper there.
LeBron evidently ranked him as one of the best shooters in the 2023 class. But now look, see if you can get LeBron giving him the little look back like, oh, you thought you had it, young fella. Man, how cool would it be? You're a kid playing AAU ball.
So cool.
And you end up being on LeBron James Jr.'s team. And LeBron's drawing up plays in the huddle, doing shooting competitions with you.
That's been the story of my whole life.
Awesome.
9th grade, Isaiah Thomas. I get to high school, Magic Johnson. Get to the NFL, first guy, Reggie White.
Charmed life.
I mean, my goodness.
Not all of us are Cris Carter, though. I think it'd be incredible.
Well, no, but people that played on your team say, man, listen to me. I got to play with Sarah Kustok. People that were on the Today Show said I got to work with Jenna Wolfe. For me, I've always... I don't know.
Couple technicians.
I've been a solo act my whole life until I teamed up with you wonderful people.
Now I get to tell people, man, I was on TV with Nick Wright, man, when he put the toupee on and started growing his hair out and everything.
Go ahead. Do your worst.
Oh, let's do it.
Do your worst.
Hey, America, you see that? That's all natural right there. You see that? It's not a toupee and everything.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
people
but
think
I'm
wearing some type of weave.
This is help you out, though. This help you out because people know you white now. You've been trying to hide behind, oh, man, he's Italian. Oh, man, he's some type of, that dude is white.
I've been found out, America.
All right, good
Not on brand.
Without a doubt, the most inflammatory question in the Bay Area. Could the Warriors win a title without Kevin Durant? The better question should be, could they win Game 1 without KD? That's because they're going to have to. Durant has been ruled out for the finals openers. He continues to rehab his calf injury. He might not even make the trip to Toronto. So, Sarah, how close will the series be if Durant is unable to play?
I anticipate this series being close. I still believe that Golden State is the favorite, and I do think even if Kevin Durant does not play, that the Warriors will eventually win, and a big part of that, their championships, and they've got championship pedigree. And we could break down how this series may play out, but Toronto has been really special in a lot of ways in which they've gotten to this point. And I think one of the biggest things that we can look at, obviously their defense was much talked about throughout the course of the Milwaukee series, but the type of defenders that they have to stack up against Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, switchability. There's a handful of factors which I think could give the Warriors a lot of serious problems, and that's both in the half court and in transition defense. But to me, the question will be, can they score with them? Because defensively, I mean, they got 2 former Defensive Player of the Years in Gasol and in Leonard. They've got 2 all-defensive team players in Danny Green and Kyle Lowry. Pascal Siakam is excellent.
Future all-defensive team player, I think.
Future all-defensive team player. Fred VanVleet is very solid. Norm Powell it can be a solid defender. So I think, to me, the question is going to be, what can they do offensively against the Warriors, a team that even without Kevin Durant has been a very good defensive team, and I think they even raise it up a notch when they don't have the luxury of relying on Kevin Durant.
So when the Warriors are at their most dangerous defensively, with or without Kevin Durant, it's when Draymond can play free safety. That's what he was able to do against Portland. Al-Farouq Aminu, Mo Harkless, man, do your worst. I'm going to roam. I'm going to meet people at the rim, and I'm going to cause mayhem. It's one of the reasons why, had the Bucks gotten through, I really liked their chances, because Draymond would not have been able to sag off any of those guys, and then Giannis would have some better free runs to the rim. If Danny Green can knock down shots, if Pascal Siakam can just be a competent corner three-point shooter, as he was during the regular season, has not been in the playoffs, that all of a sudden removes the Warriors' best defensive option, which is Draymond just going around bumping into people, and knocking people off target. So that's wildly important with or without Kevin Durant. The with or without Kevin Durant that is the biggest difference to me in the series is, if KD plays, this becomes the toughest ask of Kawhi Leonard's career. Because when he was asked to slow down LeBron, it was slow down LeBron, and if you can give us 15 points, that'd be great. Now it would be slow down KD, and we're going to need closer to 35 points, at least 30 points. Without Kevin Durant, Kawhi's job gets a lot easier, but I would argue, the other Raptors' job gets harder. Because that motion offense, the cutting, the screening, all of that, it is constant. It is constant running off screens instead of a more ISO-based offense with Durant. So I think the Warriors are the favorites. I agree with you, with or without KD. It's who has the tougher ask in the series. Is it Kawhi or is it the others? That depends on KD's availability.
I know Golden State can't do it, but when KD originally got hurt, I said I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play any more basketball.
Yep.
And I still wouldn't be surprised. He still hadn't returned to basketball activity. And to me, I expect Boogie Cousins to be on the court, and I expect Toronto and us to be asking questions about Boogie Cousins before Kevin Durant. So the thing about Kawhi, that's at least a week away, because he's got a number of days he's got to return to basketball activity and then return to basketball practice before he even gets into the game. So I think that playing against Giannis, it gave not only the Raptors, but it gave Kawhi, and especially their forwards, an opportunity to see what a runaway freight train is. And you think Draymond was something in the Western Conference Finals. Giannis is the best in the league at it, and they were able to slow him down, negate him. So I do believe that film playing against Giannis, it helps them against Draymond, because Draymond is going to score 15 to 20 points with KD, and he's going to be ultra aggressive. So you have to be able to stop that. The number one thing Toronto can't do is they cannot let 8 quarters of basketball go past before they decide, hey, you know something, we got to get physical. That's what happened in the Milwaukee series. It didn't happen until the first quarter of game number 3, when they said, we're going to put Kawhi on Giannis, and we're getting ready to yuck up this series and be more physical. They have to do that from the opening whistle, especially the guards. They're going to be undersized. VanVleet's going to be playing an awful lot. Kyle Lowry is playing an awful lot. They're going to have to be physical with the guards of Golden State to be able to slow them down. From a mindset standpoint, it's got to happen in the first quarter of game number 1, Jenna.
Sir, if you're going to play 1, maybe 2 games without KD, how important does home court advantage now become?
This is the first time we're seeing the Warriors have to start the finals on the road. And CC, to your point about Toronto out of the gates needing to be ready, to me, it's even more important for the Warriors out of the gate to be ready, because they're coming off of a long layoff. a series of which it was closer than you would see just by the number of wins against Portland. But will they have that same level of engagement they need right out of the tip? Because I think if you fall down and if you split in Toronto, if you lose those first two, then all of a sudden it changes a lot. And it changes a lot if you don't have Kevin Durant.
It becomes very important, the home court, that Toronto maintains it. I don't mind Toronto losing one of the first two games, but I prefer game number 2 because I think it's important. Game number 1, you can't lose home court advantage game number 1 going against the world champs that's trying to three-peat. I do believe the Raptors can win in Oracle. Other teams have done it. During the regular season, they've struggled at Oracle. So I believe that is important. But, man, Kawhi Leonard, I'm expecting him to be the healthiest. And talking to the people closest to him, they were glad they closed him out in game number 6 because they believe on Thursday night it will be the healthiest we have seen Kawhi in almost a month. And if we can see a healthy Kawhi, I'm talking about it's going to be close to a LeBron-ish. We didn't get LeBron in this year's playoffs, but we got blessed with Kawhi. I'm expecting Kawhi on Thursday night to put up those types of numbers, 30, 12, and 8. That's what they're going to need from him.
You mentioned this is the first time in the finals they're starting on the road. It's only the second series in the last 5 years they haven't had home court advantage. The only other series they didn't have home court was the only other series they have faced elimination, except for, of course, the series they lost to the Cavs. The only series they've faced elimination since KD's gotten there, the one against the Rockets. You pointed out this number. It's a startling number. Under Steve Kerr, the Warriors are 18-1 in opening games of a playoff series. In the last 4 years in the NBA Finals, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. All those games, though, home games. The Warriors probably be happy with a split in these first two. And I wonder how much is there going to be a rust element to how long they've been off compared to Toronto, who has a good amount of rest, but probably not as much rust.
One more thing we haven't talked a lot about is Nick Nurse. I don't think Steve Kerr gets enough credit for the type of coaching that he's done, given the amount of talent that he has. Nick Nurse has done an excellent job throughout the course of the postseason, especially in that Milwaukee series. But I remember, and I talked to him before the season started and during the preseason, and people were talking about the pressure that he would be under because of the expectations, the changes they made, letting go of Dwayne Casey. And he said, all I know is competing for a championship. And granted, it was the G League, then the D League, but he has 2 titles with 2 different teams, a ton of success over internationally. And so despite the fact this is his first year as a head NBA coach, he has won championships at other levels. And I think a lot of that we're starting to see in the ways in which he's coaching.
All right, Raptors. Who are they playing again?
Warriors Thursday night.
It'll be 9 days since the Warriors last played when they open up the finals. Thanks for joining us today. Sarah, coming up, can anyone challenge Steph Curry for finals MVP? That's next on First Things First.
America, Jenna 100% knew they were playing the Warriors. That was a joke. I know it wasn't funny, but I don't want you to think she didn't know they were playing the Warriors. 100%.
I thought it was funny.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.